6:35, and I did make some more changes to the draft that we have, and I think what we need to do is probably have a working meeting where we just focus on the draft. I do want to report that I did go to the Board of Selectmen meeting last Tuesday, and to recommend the moratorium, and they did accept the moratorium, but they would like to hear back from us as soon as possible, probably by the end of February. So we need to move forward on getting the guidelines out as soon as possible. So if we could just look at it quickly, and then we'll have the comments from our town residents, public comments. I welcome you. Thank you for coming, because we want to hear from you. We want to do it right. We want to make sure that it's what's best for the whole town. Okay, so I think it's important to also, at this point, look at the minutes of the special meeting, Friday, November 13th, because I did get more information from the Stacks. I met with them at 2:10 p.m. on Friday. We walked the property and noted that some gardeners used a lot of plastic, and that some plots were not cleaned up, since there was a lot of plastic containers all over the properties. I also noted that there wasn't any uniformity with the fences. There was some of them look kind of junky, and some of them have orange fences. So perhaps we need to, note that in our guidelines, that there should be some kind of uniformity, and that what is appropriate for maintaining the integrity of the natural venue. There was also mention made of the Amity track, which meets in front of the gardens, and that the field is partially mowed and the buses park there when they have the meets. So perhaps we should recommend, again, these are all motions that we need to make and make decisions on, and I think we need to put them on paper first, and then afterwards move forward, with the guidelines that is no longer a draft. Okay, so signage was recommended so that the buses park in the parking lot and not in front of the gardens.
I'm sorry, where are they parking?
They're parking right, do you know where the parking lot is? Okay,
Yeah.
so beyond that, you go straight,
Yeah.
beyond the ice rink,
Yep.
in front of the gardens. There's
To the
like
left.
to the left.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there's
Not
like
past it,
no,
the other field.
No.
Oh, okay.
Right there, they mow it,
Okay.
and then the buses park there.
And is that lot that the buses are parking in potential gardening space if we run out?
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
That's what I don't know, and that's what we need to determine at this point in time. I think we don't even know how many plots are there. We have maybe 70 in that area, and then beyond that area, maybe there's 30 more.
Okay.
So I don't have an exact number. So maybe that's something that we need to do, is label the plots with the people's names, so that there's more continuity and order to it, so that we know who has what.
Yeah.
So this is something that maybe we should look into. The other thing was that cars should not be allowed to park there, because they drive very fast, and I've experienced this where I was walking and cars just like zip right by you, or put sign up saying 5 miles per hour or whatever, and it really should be only for people that have garden business there. And for a short period of time. They shouldn't go and park there and spend the day there. The parking lot, designated parking lot, is there for them to do that. And if they need to drop off things and then, they can move the vehicle, that's fine. But, making it limited. I also noted that there were 3 sheds, so that perhaps we should, just make a decision about should there be sheds or should any more sheds beyond what we already have. So that's something that we should decide. And it also seems like there is a problem determining residency. I think we need to request that they show us their license to say that they do live in town. Or perhaps if they don't live in town, they need to be sponsored by a resident, that the person works with them. Because it should be just for town residents. It should not be for out-of-towners. Okay, so the meeting was adjourned at 2:45, and I want to thank the Stacks, for providing that for me. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, why don't we just move to the second item on our agenda, and it's actually the third item. Public comments. If you would just step forward in the seat, if anybody would like to speak.
Hi.
Hi again.
My name is Mary Gorham, and I'm here because I just think that Fitzgerald Property is one of the few real jewels of Woodbridge. We have people come to Woodbridge primarily for the schools. And when you think of what makes Woodbridge really stand out, it's the schools, it's our library, it's Massaro Farm, and it's the Fitzgerald track. And I would really, really, really love to see it remain as it is in perpetuity in terms of its natural character, its rural, sort of agrarian feel with the haying that's gone on there for years. And to see the general sort of what I see as creep of other things not only halted but reversed. And I think the best way to do that is to put in writing a vision for the Fitzgerald property as remaining a natural place for walking, gardening, birding, and for all of the other kinds of recreation that require permanent changes to the land, like ball fields or skating rinks, soccer fields, anything like that, to not use the property for those purposes, but rather use Pease Road, Acorn Hill. We have other places for recreation that does require permanent changes to the land. It's the only place where you can walk without risking getting ticks or poison ivy, as you do if you are walking in the woods. We don't have sidewalks in Woodbridge, so it's a treasure that is so wonderful for the public. If you go there at any time of day, it seems like there's at least 20 cars in the parking lot. Sometimes it's way more, depending upon the time of day and the time of year. So the request that I would have for the committee would be to put in writing a vision for the Fitzgerald property being preserved for its natural character and not built up. So any requests for structures, and also for the benches to be wooden, to be really in keeping with a natural character. The metal benches to me scream sort of Central Park, New York City. They just stand out. They're not rural. The whole memorial, the Shanti Memorial, to me feels like a graveyard. So anyway, so that would be my request, that there be something put in writing that it's low use and classified in perpetuity as whatever the classification is for the lowest type of use, so that it's preserved as a natural place for walking, for gardening, for the farming, and that I would love to see the skating rink blacktop move to another place, because it's just a blacktop most of the time. And I'd love to see all the benches wooden, structures in the community garden not allowed, and to keep it as rural as possible forever, because it's just what people are coming there for is walking.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Dave Schneider, and my son originally, but my wife and I since then have had a garden plot there for 10, 20 years, 15, I don't know, a number of years. Two plots. So a couple things. I think I would agree with you were saying that some of it is getting a little bit out of hand with the plastics and different things. On the other hand, I think you could go too far if you start,
Right.
saying we got to have exactly this kind of
Right.
fence and all that kind of stuff, and that takes away a little bit of the fun of different people doing different things. But so I'm not quite sure. But I would also echo Mary that I think that more structures should not be allowed in the garden place or anything else. Quite frankly, I mean, I guess we have some benches there, but I think it ought to be prohibited that any more benches. It's kind of become the trendy thing to put benches in, and I just think that it needs to be stopped, or anything else. And certainly the whole Fitzgerald tract should be kept as passive recreation. And I was interested about the buses because one of our plots are right next to one of the main roads there. And, having these buses come in and spew diesel all over a garden is not exactly what we had in mind. The second thing I just emphasize is that the town, I'm sure has a policy of no pesticides on town property other than a few limited areas. And I think that needs to be emphasized as to Fitzgerald, that there's no pesticides. And every once in a while it gets mentioned, but some people are not even quite sure. They say, what does that mean? I mean, we need to make that clear.
So it needs to be made clear, maybe in the guidelines.
That it's organic, there's no pesticides,
Right.
The other thing is I think would be very helpful if we did somehow maybe even put a conservation easement on it so that it's limited in perpetuity to passive recreation, and we don't have to keep thinking, is somebody going to try to use it for some other purpose? So I think those are the main things, but certainly to keep more and more things just being kind of stuck there is what we'd say is important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Bob Brightenstone. I live on Seymour Road in Woodbridge. Fitzgerald Property is the only place I have to walk. There are no sidewalks in Woodbridge. I used to run and be able to run anywhere, but as a walker, it seems that we're less adventurous. And so I walk daily, twice a day, summer and winter. First thing I'd say, well, let me get to it. I think that your mention of the speed limit, 5 miles an hour, you'll kill somebody. Couple miles an hour when you brake from where you go from the main parking area down to the garden area, 2 miles per hour, it's reasonable. And it's common sense. But this is Woodbridge and everybody speeds. And when they don't speed, they tailgate. So in any case, that's a comment aside. A big consideration of the people, you mentioned parking and parking in the garden area. There's very little access to water from the point of view of the gardeners. Many of the people are carrying water jugs. To my mind, it's not possible for the gardeners to park up at the parking area and then do their work, and they work, most of them, pretty damn hard down in the garden. They have to leave their cars there. And I don't think that that should become an issue. I think that we try to regulate too much, and I think it would be a big mistake to tell somebody that, well, you can leave your car here for 20 minutes, but then you've got to move it. They have to have access to the cars. They carry their tools. So I think you give them a break. I think that should come off the table. I don't think it should be an issue. In the wintertime, I mentioned there are no sidewalks in Woodbridge. It's the only place we have to walk. I think the town should think about plowing the area. I don't think it, I know it. And I don't think they should ignore it. There are people that walk there on a daily basis, and when it snows, they can't walk. The trails, I've been told by the town that there's a liability problem. It seems to me that if someone's walking and the trails are not plowed, isn't that a liability problem as well? So I think it should be addressed, and I think it should be plowed, and I think people should be allowed to walk there in the wintertime. And so as the meeting goes on, I may once again appear at the table. But that's it for now.
All right, thank you very much.
You bet, thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
Louisa Cunningham.
Hi.
As you know, I sent you an email with my thoughts that are basically outside the parameters of the Best Outdoor Organic Management Maintenance Practice Committee. But I think it probably is a good idea to mention some of these publicly. Like others, I do think that Fitzgerald is really a treasure in Woodbridge, and it's also vulnerable as a place that townspeople imagine should satisfy many, if not all, outdoor activities. It's become a place that has addressed everyone's wishes, and in the process is in danger of losing what's special about it. Fitzgerald needs to be preserved as a natural space that's basically unencumbered by human intervention. To assure Fitzgerald does not go the way of areas that gradually lose their character for lack of planning, I recommend a variety of things. The skating rink is an artificial structure that's totally inappropriate at the entrance, essentially, to the walking area of Fitzgerald. I would recommend it be removed to a place like Pease Place, which is a structured artificial setting where athletics also take place. Parents can watch children engage in other activities. There's parking. If the rink, which presently serves very few, were improved, as some have recommended, with walls so that hockey can be played and benches put in, it would further diminish the quality of Fitzgerald, in my opinion. The community gardens, Again, the rural nature of our town being a quality our townspeople cherish, the casual, relaxed environment of our community gardens should be retained. And man-made elements should only exist if they're absolutely necessary. Garden guidelines should clarify that the contents of the gardens must be temporary and easily removed, and structures not allowed, as is in the case of the Edgerton Gardens in New Haven. Well, there are certainly community gardens that do have more permanent elements, most do not. And I don't think the shed at the southeast end of Fitzgerald should be grandfathered, as it will always be a thorn in the side of other gardeners and people who enjoy Fitzgerald. Management of the garden should fall to a small committee, in my opinion, of several people, say 3. Perhaps they should be approved by the gardeners. They would report periodically to Cupop. Treatment of issues when left to one individual can become, I think, quite awkward and left to personal judgment. Also, the road through the garden area that was just mentioned, I think, again, only use by the gardeners should be permitted, and my recommendation is something like a dashboard membership card, just as you use at the Water Company Authority, might allow for monitoring of the cars that are parked there to assure that those who are not gardeners are not parking there. I've recommended that the mowing for the Amity cross-country team be moved back to the far end of the gardens, the southeast, the farthest meadow at the top. It might involve just a little bit of leveling for that finish line activity, but the middle meadow is fairly modest in size, and when it gets sort of shaven, looks quite awkward and loses its very bucolic kind of character. Benches, I would agree, should be wooden. The kind of metal benches that we have are seen typically in the center of towns, near libraries, town halls, center of New Haven, by the courthouse in Northampton, Mass. I mean, that's where you typically see them. The plaques that are presently on them could be actually put on wooden benches, and perhaps the present metal benches reallocated around the old firehouse. The stone benches, in my opinion, are basically appropriate to cemeteries, and again, not the Fitzgerald aesthetic. The farthest southeastern field, in my opinion, is best suited as a meadow and the final kind of natural climax of the sequence of spaces. Again, the Organic Management Committee will get into that further. The recent fireworks I found troubling again, because although I understand they were quite popular, I think they're much more appropriate to, again, a more artificial setting, not one that we associate with sort of peacefulness that many people enjoy, but instead a place like the Woodbridge Golf Club, Pease Place, Acorn Hill. We've really got to start separating the kinds of activities that occur at Fitzgerald. Dog park has also been raised, and while I know many enjoy walking and meeting dogs at Fitzgerald, I think it's quite important that the number not become excessive and that the environment remain conducive to wildlife. Therefore, a dog park, I believe, is inappropriate at Fitzgerald. We have plenty of acreage elsewhere in Woodbridge where one could be placed, and while I've heard that much of that acreage, over 1,000 acres that we have, is wooded, there's no reason why a little bit of that couldn't be cleared or an appropriate place found. And again, Mary Gorham mentioned this, but the approach to managing issues such as the ones I've outlined, really would be much clearer if we had a statement of purpose for Fitzgerald, one that makes it clear that it's a bucolic place for wildlife, walking, gardening, and farming. If the town's uncomfortable establishing a permanent policy for its use, then guidelines should be created for periodic review. I would suggest every 10 to 20 years. The guidelines should make the review process clear for proposed use. So if someone's going to put in a rink or a shed or use by school, a running team, again, there should be a review process. I think all of us are aware that there really is a gradual change occurring, a gradual creep, and it will have the effect of erasing the special character that Fitzgerald has. Fitzgerald represents a very character of Woodbridge, in my opinion. Some might say its soul, and as such, it must be thoughtfully and respectfully preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to mention that we're going to limit the comments to another 10 minutes. So if anyone else wants to speak, please do so. And at 7:10, we're going to go back to our meeting because we do have a lot to cover. Thank you.
Hi, I'll talk fast.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My name is Larry Klein, and I'm an eye doctor living in Woodbridge for about Larry Klein, K-L-I-N-E. Eye doctor, E-Y-E, only kidding. Living in Woodbridge for about 39 years. So we have seen the development of unnatural structures here in Woodbridge. My wife has maintained 3 gardens in the garden area for many years. We saw the trails come, that was good. We saw 80 acres of the Toll Brothers being, that property developed, so that woodland destroyed. We remember that the Fitzgerald dream was to keep open space. His dream was open space. Then we saw the large signs at the beginning of that area by Roger Harrison, big signs there, and these stretch bars that no one uses, and then the benches. The dog park was considered and thankfully rejected. Hopefully that's not being considered again. We saw the firehouse being built, nice firehouse, took off some of the land again. We saw the granite memorial at the end, which some of that was removed, which was good also. Very nice man and wonderful lady. We saw the fence around the trees that came, the chestnut trees. So we should keep the land open. I think that's your charge, it's our charge. The land for walking, for people, for dogs. Walking is the basis. Someone else raised that nice point, not many places to walk. Walking is the basis of our health. In our society, we age for cardiovascular disease, for strokes, heart attacks, for eye disease, for obesity. We're growing older, so we have the responsibility to keep and preserve the health of our population, and it can be mediated by these wonderful walking trails. Thank you.
Good evening. Constance Eklund, Cedar Road, 27, where I have lived since 1974. I walk every day at the Fitzgerald. Today I went. I carried the French flag. My stepson and I sang the Marseillaise, and we had a moment of silence at noon. This is the great beauty. This is worthy of a painting from the 18th century or earlier. It is a magnificent piece of land, and we all who walk it love it. I want to give a few ideas. It is a quiet, beautiful oasis. We now use it for races, skating, walking. My suggestions here are that you touch this paradise with gentle hands. Now, I'm not, in contrast to some of my friends here, I'm not against the skating rink, because I think of the old 18th century Currier and Ives paintings of little old towns, little villages where in the middle there are skaters floating about, and I rather like that. I like seeing the skaters, and I think it's a pleasant thing. I think it should be in better shape. I think it's good for mothers with children. You often see them there with little tricycles going along in the summertime, so I'm not necessarily against that, but I do feel that the benches could lose their funereal aspect Of course, everyone who put one there has a loved one, and these are very, very sacred to their families. But I think that if you keep the benches there, that the memorial could be placed on the side of the bench or on the back of the bench, so that when you walk down, you're not walking by sort of the names on tombstones. I think it would be a little more subtle. You could have it on the back. And so the names that are there now could be switched around to the back, and maybe that would help a lot. I feel it when I walk by, not have a visible name there. I don't think necessarily we need anything like bocce. Somebody once said, well, why don't we have boule or bocce here? But they have one over at the library. It seems to me that's enough. I think that there shouldn't be more benches, as I say, just put the bench markers to the side. I feel very strongly about the Shanti Garden. I have enjoyed the roses. I think it's very beautiful, but the problem there is that you have not made a garden. No one will be able to plant that afterwards. It's now going to be a permanent sort of rose garden because it's got all this gravel, it seems to me. So it's too bad that there was even more put than a garden plot. So my thought there is, it seems to me the garden plots should be of an even size, not some enormous long ones and big ones. Why don't you just have all the garden plots be a certain size? If they were all a certain size, it would keep everyone sort of within a boundary. And I would ask all renters of plots to be responsible for a neatness of storage and not just at the end of the season schlock everything around. It really looks very poor. Now, you might say, well, a lot of people have big plots because they like to plant different things. But I have been walking that for now years, and I found that people don't even pick their plants. They don't pick the vegetables. They're rotting on the vine. These gardens are planted and they don't use them, large plots. So I think, well, maybe if they were all of one size, and if you felt that after 2 years this plot was not being used and things were just sort of going to pieces, then you might say that you would suggest to those people that they give up their plot to someone who could really use it. So those are my thoughts. Cut down on the funereal aspect by more subtle approach. Do not put more benches. I think that's probably a good idea. Maybe shift where the benches are now so that it's not when you first arrive there's a sort of a group of benches at once. Maybe put them about here and there. Beauty and tranquility should be your passwords for this plot of land. It is an incredible gift to Woodbridge, and it should not be changed, I don't think. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, last comments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Amy Morella. So I will leave some of my comments with this request that you provide a venue for those of us who haven't had this chance to speak or couldn't come tonight. How should they provide comments to you? I know there's an interest of a few people who can make it tonight. I have a letter for you from somebody who couldn't make it. I have a log, which I took just by the times when I went to Fitzgerald, which shows the number of cars when I happened to be there. You'll notice that it is primarily in September, and then I took a few in October and November just to show that it continues to be 27 cars on November 8th, for example. The purpose of this is to show how popular it is, and also to show that there really isn't space in the existing parking lot to even contemplate additional uses. So any additional use would also require a larger parking lot, which means two good reasons not to put any new recreational uses on the Fitzgerald track. And then the last thing I just want to mention is as you look at this, I would hope that you would encourage the Board of Selectmen to reinvigorate not only the process of forwarding things to Cupop, as is supposed to happen. You are supposed to advise them on the use of all publicly owned properties, but also that they reinvigorate their use of Section 824, which is referrals to town plan and zoning. I think some of the mishaps will be avoided if opportunities are given by advisory committees such as yours and statutory committees such as town plan and zoning to review ideas. And finally, I would just ask that you provide further opportunities for comment by your committee on an occasional basis. I think this showing here demonstrates that people do care, are interested, and would like you to give them
And we
benefits of
care
your
also. We
thoughts.
want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and
So,
we're very grateful that you did offer this opportunity for comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I should mention that Lauren is here, and you represent the Conservation Commission. So you're here as the ex officio member, and we were supposed to also get someone from TPZ, and I'm sure he will be attending in the future, so, okay. Okay, so should we perhaps table the draft application, because, time is of the essence at this point, and perhaps work on it. We have a meeting scheduled, by the way, on December 1st, from our old schedule, and I don't know what exactly happened, but this is considered a special meeting. For some reason, the fact that we made the changes to our meeting dates for the third Monday of every month was not documented, thank you, was not documented, and therefore, this is considered a special meeting. Thank you. Thank you. And so,
Is the December 1st one going to replace the third Monday of the month meeting?
Can I just make an emotional comment? So both of my daughters were married in the field, so we have a special
Connection.
natural attachment.
thank you, Dr. Klein. Okay,
Thanks.
bye-bye. So, I thought this was our regular meeting.
Right.
And when Stephanie informed me that, this was not a regular meeting, because there were no documentation, I said, but it's in the minutes, I said, it's in the minutes that we have for
So Kim
September.
just didn't tell the town that we updated it?
Yes.
Which is where the community, so.
So there was
Okay.
a lack of communication somewhere, so what we could do on the December meeting is decide when our regular meetings will be
For 2016.
for 2016. And, we can make that recommendation that moving forward, or we could do it now also. We could say moving forward, for our December meeting, we're going to recommend that in January, starting in January, our meetings will begin on the third Monday of each month. So do I have a motion for
How
that?
did we arrive at the third Monday versus the first week?
We had gotten an email from, I think it was Jerry Shaw,
Yeah.
asking if that was correct. I mean, if we could move, if everyone was okay with moving it to the third Monday of the month.
I think somebody else was using the first Monday.
So maybe a scheduling
Same
conflict or...
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's how it happened. And so, and we all said, yes, the third Monday works. And so this is, we thought that it was moving forward, so this is really a special meeting, it's not our regular meeting. Okay? So we're good with that? So do I have a motion that we meet?
I make a motion that we change our meeting date effective January 2016 to the third Monday of the month.
Okay. Okay.
Although I do have to say, will this cause a problem in January with MLK? Is the building closed for, I think that Monday is MLK. Let me just
Okay.
check.
Yeah, let me check too, I should check. Excuse me.
It is.
That could be a problem. Yeah, so I don't know if the building is going to be available. since it's
What
a-
did you say?
It is.
It is available?
Yeah, no, it is Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, it is the first? Or the
18th.
18th.
And then, getting to that, I think in February,
Well, I think I will make a list of the dates.
15th is President's Day.
Okay, I will make a list of the dates, and then if there are conflicts, then we'll move it to the Tuesday, or, whatever, everyone is good for everyone, if that's okay. All right?
Okay.
So, do I have a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay. Let me look at the first. I think having the meeting on the 1st would be great.
Tuesday, December 1st.
I personally would rather do it early December than the end of December.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
I don't think I'll be
absolutely.
here for the,
But it would be a special meeting also. It would be considered a special meeting. So if that date works for everybody, we could meet on Tuesday, December 2nd, and 6:30.
wait, December 2nd?
December
I'm
1st.
first, I'm sorry, December 1st at 6:30. I don't know if we're going to be able to meet here, but I'll check with Jerry, and maybe we can use the back
Yeah,
room,
conference room.
or I'll check to see what room is available for us. So December 1st, 6:30. Okay? So that works for everybody?
Yep.
Correct? Okay, all right. All right, so, yes.
Do we need a motion to table the community garden draft?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Make a motion.
Why don't we say that our next meeting is going to be a working meeting, so that you have time to look over the draft, and you can make corrections to it, what you want to see on it, what you want to see included, especially after listening to, the emotional appeal of some of our residents. I think it's important to see if we can make it mesh.
Yeah.
And then we could just focus right on at the guidelines. Also, perhaps we should also consider the draft application form that Terry can address it now, but Terry, can you speak on it?
Yeah, sure. So I basically came up with a draft for a rental agreement, good for 1 year. So each year you would have to renew your gardening agreement. And in addition to providing proof of residency and your information, the gardener will comply with the rules and regulations set forth by the Woodbridge Community Garden. And I went through the notes just from previous meeting and from your conversations with the stacks, and just kind of came up with some guidelines that we can edit. I mean, some of them were easy, when they talked about gardening with organic gardening techniques, and obviously we don't want to use chemical pesticides, so that was easy. Gardening maintenance was
Should we recommend what they can use so that there's no misunderstanding?
I wouldn't go into detail with products because I think it changes.
Yeah.
And even talking with Adam Parsons, that changes, sometimes they found one is less effective than another. So I think if we just label it, organic gardening techniques and organic compounds, it says on the stuff that you're buying if it's organic or not. And just, I said we prohibit the use of chemical pesticides and herbicides. And, maybe we can say it at the end, if you have a question as to whether your gardening product is chemical or organic, please contact the Woodbridge Gardens.
Right. And I think what they also said about having a committee of maybe 3 members
Yeah.
because I don't think one person, I think it's difficult for one person to police it, quote, police it, or to monitor the gardens. I think having 2 other people, then it seems to be that they can work together, and if one person can't do it, or they all three of them
Sure.
could go and look at it. And the other thing I think we need to do is, because some of them don't clean up their plots, is perhaps include a $50 fee.
I had that in there.
Yes,
So
$50 fee.
okay, yeah, so I put stuff in parentheses, or I'm sorry, in italics that I wasn't certain about that were new that we hadn't discussed, just to bring it up for
Right,
discussion
right.
at our meeting. But I noticed that when I did this and I used the town of West Hartford's
Right.
guidelines, they had a fee, and I think that might encourage people to like clean
Clean it
up,
up.
because otherwise there's no
Otherwise,
incentive for them.
if they don't clean it up, then
Right.
what, can happen is, hey, we have your $50 fee, and you don't clean it
So you're
up.
saying a deposit or a fee?
It's a deposit.
Okay.
It's a
Two
deposit.
different
So that, basically, if they're not going to renew their plot, they get it back at the end of the year.
That's a good
If the plot is cleaned up, and if it's not cleaned up, we can send them a letter and saying, hey, if your plot isn't cleaned up within a couple of weeks or a month or whatever is reasonable time,
Right.
then we are going to hire someone and pay them your deposit, and you will not get the deposit back.
So that should be put in the...
Yes.
It should be noted that we provide some written notice to them.
Right.
Have a certain amount of number of days to do what needs to be done, otherwise they'll lose their deposit.
Right, I mean, if somebody falls ill, then they may have to
Right. Well, so
appoint a
that-
family member
well,
to take
exact-
care of it.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened with one of the plots. Someone fell ill, and it just kind of,
Oh, I did put it in there.
yeah.
Neglected plots may be cleared and/or re-rented if the gardener does not take appropriate action within 2 weeks of notification by the Woodbridge Community Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's notification if it's
So
neglected.
you have everything covered.
I know.
Yeah.
Impressed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But,
I'm kidding, I really copy this.
and I guess, again, I guess that the
Plagiarism.
person was approached,
You don't have to mention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so.
but they want the
Right.
plot.
Yeah, so, and then I think the other thing was, I wasn't sure about the limit of plots, so I recommended having 2 plots, because some of the plot sizes look like they were bigger than 25 by 45. So I think they are using 2 plots right now.
Yeah, and I also went up to the fence, and I think it came up to here, some of them.
Right.
So it's 4 feet high. So obviously deer can jump that.
Right.
But, I don't want to say to them, it has to be 5 feet high,
Right.
If they're good with 4, maybe 4.5, 4 feet.
I mean, they know what they're up against that the
Yeah,
deer may get to it.
yes,
so-
right.
Sure.
But I think we should also describe what the fencing should look like.
Well, so what I thought would be appropriate would just say, just temporary fencing, because I know that Public Works isn't gonna wanna come in and have to remove,
Chain link or,
right, permanent structures or rusted metal
But
structures.
some of them are already permanent. I heard that, I was informed that some of the gardeners plant
Cement.
posts
Oh,
on each, and that goes into cement.
right.
And that costs about $500,
Remove.
so something very
Right.
exorbitant.
Footings in the ground.
In the ground,
Yeah.
to prevent the gophers or the rabbits or whatnot, and then they put the fencing underneath
Right.
a couple of feet, again, to prevent underground rodents, from going and eating, the plants. So for us to tell them, that they have to remove those because they're there already.
Right.
So, that's quite, an expense that they've already invested. So
Yeah.
maybe moving,
Grandfathered in.
maybe they get grandfathered in, and then the wind
Right.
will blow, some of the posts out if, they're not,
Sure.
put in properly. So, something that we need to discuss further and make a decision about what it should look like. Okay. But you did a
Sounds
great
good.
job on that. Anything else you'd like to say about it?
I think so. I wasn't sure who was really maintaining them. I kept referring to the Woodbridge Garden
I think,
community. What are they?
yeah, well, I think it really has.
Community gardens.
Yeah.
When are we hoping to sign off on this?
I would like to sign off as soon as, the earlier the better, but I would say by the end of February,
Okay.
have everything done with the guidelines and with the application, because then that's when they're going to be looking to
For the next season?
next season.
Yeah.
So
for new.
who's enforcing this? I mean, who's like responsible? for
Right
it?
now, we have Tara and Andy Stack, who,
So they're part of the garden.
they're part of the gardens,
Okay.
okay?
So they're the ones who collect the money. and
They collect the money and they buy the compost and
they're
they,
responsible for
well,
returning
they have,
deposits. and all that.
they have been, well, no, there's really no deposit. The money's, it's $20 fee, I
Does it be going
believe.
forward, once we do this, then someone is going to have
Right,
control
well,
over that?
somebody would have to, and I don't see why, yeah, it's something that we need to discuss,
We should
okay?
discuss it. I mean, it could be them, but if not, then maybe, I don't know, maybe it's this committee or a different committee, but then someone's got to be responsible.
I
Responsible
think
for.
also it should be somebody at the town hall, because
Yeah.
somebody has to verify eligibility and proof of residency. Because otherwise, anybody can just, get a lot and say, oh, yeah, I'm,
Well, what I understand
around
is
it for them.
happening is that sometimes they use their work address. They have been using the work address, so, that could be problematic, so,
I think that's easy enough to find, if we put down Boone or Drive or something like that.
Right,
that's all
exactly.
office spaces.
Yes,
So that's easy
right,
enough to verify
right.
where they actually live.
Mhm.
right, so at the town hall, they have the resources to do that.
To do that, well, again, these are things that we have to look into, and do we want to count the plots and label them? Is that something that we want to do, or maybe the gardeners should do, and get a list of who has plot 1, who has plot 2, who has plot 3? Should there be a record of all this?
I do
think
like
so.
the idea of maybe a 2 or 3 member committee just for there, and maybe the stacks will be on it, and someone else who can take that responsibility.
Just have a little map and just say, okay, these are the plots.
Yeah,
Because right now, we don't know,
sure, how do you know who to contact if
how do
someone's
you know
neglected?
who to contact if there's a problem?
Right.
Okay, and, or if you want to speak to someone.
Right.
So,
Or what if somebody says, well, I want that plot, and it doesn't look like it's being used,
mhm,
but somebody's growing like weeds or like flowers that maybe aren't vegetables.
Right.
and they are using it.
mhm,
You should be able to
yeah,
verify it.
exactly.
And it feels like this is the perfect kind of situation where the Conservation Commission, it should also be involved
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
open space.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
so,
absolutely, that's why you're here.
oh, good.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why you're
You're
here.
welcome.
Yeah. Okay, and, okay, any other discussion on the application form? So we'll table that also for our next meeting to make any adjustments, any
Yeah.
changes to
I'll
it?
go through the comments from
Yes.
the town
Mhm.
residents tonight and see if any of those concerns were addressed in the applications and the rules.
I'm sorry, so the small group that we would form to manage the plots, would the members come from here, or
I would
somewhere
think-
else?
I think, if there's someone that is interested in being a member of that group, I don't have a problem with it, but I think it would make sense to have the gardeners, and then have them form a
little
committee,
group.
little
Okay.
group, and then have them report to us, maybe 3 times a year. How are things going in the spring, the summer, and the fall? Yes, we have, everything's going well. We have 100 members. They're all using their plots beautifully. We don't have any issues, or if they have issues, to report them to us. I mean, I even had a situation where I was informed that some members of the gardeners try to cut down some trees.
Oh, I just saw that.
Yeah, they're not supposed to cut trees, that's only, the town can do that.
Right.
So if there's a problem with the tree, they need to inform
Right.
the tree warden, and then the tree warden will go and inspect it and, make a decision, to cut it or not to cut it. So, okay, so then we'll have a motion to continue looking at the application and bring it back on the 1st to our working meeting. Second?
I second that.
Okay, good. All right, and Terry, you're on here again for the FOI.
Yes. So the
Freedom of Information.
2016 FOI presentation wasn't uploaded yet at the time to YouTube, I think it was. So Jerry Shaw sent me the 2013, which was the previous presentation, and she said it contained the same content for the most part. You know, the Freedom of Information Act, the purpose of the meeting was to inform committee members from groups like us, the sort of guidelines about having meetings, and and you know, the main takeaway, I mean, I think the link was it sent around to our committee? But
You sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you sent me a link.
So
I think I forwarded it to everyone.
Okay, so
And I also did send pictures of my walk too, so I don't know if you got to look at them, you know.
right from
Yeah,
the 13th.
From the 13th.
Essentially, what the presentation said was that it's freedom of information, but it really is more about freedom of access to
Right.
information. And it's important to understand that the goal of the FOI Commission isn't to provide records and information. It's to determine whether things were accessible and in compliance. So the important things that, you know, they look at are access to public meetings and access to public records, which is why we televise and we have announcements. Might be an emergency.
I was name that too.
What song is that?
I may need to go take that. And in summary,
Yeah.
they recommended that any time that the board or commission is having a meeting or getting together, and this doesn't necessarily only relate to these meetings, but also electronic meetings. So anytime that we are discussing information about our work or what we're on our committee to do, then we need to, 1, give proper notice to the community, 2, have it open to the public, and 3, keep minutes available for people to read about.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether you call it a workshop to get around it, because the title of your meeting is irrelevant, whether you call it a workshop, a subcommittee meeting, a working meeting. If you're meeting and you're getting together to discuss the work, then you really should have those 3 areas covered. And then the last thing that they talked about was the confusion, I guess, recently about whether it constitutes a meeting if you don't have a quorum. And while it's sort of a divided topic, some people feel like a quorum without a quorum doesn't constitute a meeting. To be safe, it doesn't matter if you don't have a quorum or not. If you have any committee members meeting, then you should follow those 3 things.
Put the minutes in. Submit the minutes and say you don't have a quorum, no votes were taken.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing that I just put on our agenda is just a reminder to everyone that our agenda has to be filed at least 24 hours before the meeting date. So I usually have to put it in, if we're meeting on a Monday, that Friday by 5 o'clock or 4:30, 5 o'clock. The motion and the votes have to be in within 48 hours after the meeting. So that's very, very important. And the minutes have to be submitted within 7 days after the meeting. So just a review so that we're all on the same page, that, this is what we, need to be doing. Otherwise, we would not be in compliance. Okay, moving on to, thank you for that, and thank you for going. Invitation sent to the ex officio members, and so we introduced Lauren already, and thank you for coming, and I think having this connection so that you can communicate with us what conservation is doing and vice versa, I think is very, very important. And if we need to collaborate on any project, I know last year when we were putting together the list of properties, we worked together. And also we worked together on another assignment. So it's a good thing. The more people you have working, the more gets done. So the number 7, I communicated with the Stacks, and we did the walk. And you have in front of you the Yale forestry study. And I went through it, and I didn't realize that Pachysandra was an invasive.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
Pachysandra is invasive, but what you need to do, I guess, to keep it from being invasive is just making sure that you keep cutting it so that it doesn't spread to where you don't want it to spread. It just, it goes all over the place.
Yeah, I like it.
I was Sanford
A lot of people
Road,
don't like
I
it.
drove by the other day, and I said, oh gee, they have a nice yard, and all of a sudden I said, oh yeah, now I know why it's so pretty, it's all Pachysandra. It's just, but it's, they don't have to mow it, they don't have to do anything.
Right.
The other invasive plant was the burning bush.
Right, that one I know.
Yeah, so I didn't realize they do drop a lot of plants, and, they take root, so the burning bush is another one. So my thoughts on the Yale forestry study is that we recommend that the group that was here tonight, the gardeners, work on that, and make their recommendations, they would, obviously it looks like they're moving towards birding, meadows, walking, tranquil, low impact activities. So maybe we should let them look at that study and then make recommendations to us on how they want to implement that study. That study actually was done, I think, in 2009 when I was on the Board of Selectmen. So, and it's been pretty much sitting on the shelves. That's why sometimes I don't believe that we need to do more and more studies. I think we need to look at the studies that we have and try to implement the studies and move them forward. Okay, and I also gave you, I think, Mike, right? Mike requested the list of properties, and so I gave you that.
As soon as this is.
Yes, yeah. So I gave you that so that if you have any questions, you can, we worked on that last year. That had not been updated in many, many, many years. And, you could look at it.
It describes here, so it's a mixture of vacant land and some other stuff.
Right. I think we need to, if you're done with that, if there are no questions on that, move on. The minutes from the October 15th meeting, Monday, October 15th, I think we should change that to a special meeting. We have regular meeting, so please look it over, and if there's anything else, could we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the October special meeting minutes.
Okay, very good. Second?
Second.
Second, okay. Okay, and I apologize. We have also the minutes from Tuesday, September 1st. And that was our regular meeting.
We didn't approve those at the last meeting?
Did we? Was it approved?
We did.
Okay. And on the back, you have the website. Yeah. All right, so why don't we not do a motion? We'll check on our minutes from the last meeting. Or it should be. It's not on here, so maybe we should just do it just for, okay. So may I have a motion to accept those minutes as written?
Motion to approve the minutes from the September special meeting.
That's the regular meeting.
Oh, regular meeting, regular one.
Okay, so, second?
Second.
Okay, very good. And now, what about the motion, the minutes for the special meeting on the 13th? I have a motion for that one.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on the 13th of
November?
November, right.
A second.
Okay. All right. Make sure we got everything. Also, I included in your packet the summary of requests for use of farmland, just to show you how the requests noted that the hay harvest is existing grass, okay, unless otherwise noted, and then you have the lease of town-owned farmland. And that's what that lease looks like, just so that you have an idea of how that looks like, and maybe the application, if we want to include any of this in the application. And I guess if it's basically leased for $10 each field. And then there's the indemnification clause on that. So if we wanted to include the same one. And then here it says, further, no synthetic or non-organic fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides. So perhaps we can copy and paste.
You want to add this to the application?
Right, yep. And then it says environmental protection. I think that's a good, also. I mean, it's already written, and it's part of what exists now. And the loss, the town of Woodbridge shall not be liable for loss of equipment, personal property, et cetera, et cetera. And there are the guidelines that they have. So, okay. And then you have the gardening procedures, compost and mulch, pesticides. That's all good information. Terry, okay. And I had included Louisa's notes for you that I had already sent to you. So for our agenda for next time, first of all, is there anything else that you would like to discuss moving forward tonight? No?
Oh,
Yes?
yeah, 1 second. I thought Amy Morella brought up a good point about certain things. We are the Cupop overseeing public properties.
Right.
That certain things should probably come through us.
Right.
I mean, an example I would have is the Country Club of Woodbridge. I know there's a commission, but, you know.
Right. Oh,
that would
absolutely.
fall under us, but
Right.
yet we hear nothing about it,
Right,
so.
okay. But I think moving forward, we will probably get more information.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree, I think it's that, there's several properties, that's why I wanted to get a list of what we own.
Right, right,
What we
right.
control over, and,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, that's our
so-
charge.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's good to see that we're working hard on getting Fitzgerald Property,
Right.
you know, put in order. and
But let's get that in order first,
But
and
there's
then,
other things too. I mean,
Yes.
so that, or the firehouse is another thing that keeps on coming up over
Right,
and over again.
right,
How to manage
right.
that, what to do with that.
right,
So I think we have a lot of opportunities to do pretty big things, you know, for the community.
Right.
And
I
so
agree.
It shouldn't fall off the radar.
we have a lot of work
Yeah.
ahead of us.
Good.
We have a lot of work. Okay, so the agenda for our next meeting?
It's important to wrap up community gardens. Maybe we get that wrapped up.
Wrap up the draft
Yeah.
guidelines. And,
Do you want to talk more about the benches, which kind of all falls into it?
yes.
Oh, by the way, because I know you sent an email to us to look into other towns.
Right.
And what their
Mhm.
procedures might be for memorial benches. So I contacted the folks in Madison. They don't have anything. You
Okay.
know, it's pretty much, you know, someone contacts town hall, and if someone there sees it as being a good idea, they just go ahead and approve it. And they were actually interested to see what we come out with.
Yes,
See if we
okay.
can provide to them. So
Okay,
there's not much.
I did some research into Bethany, and I really couldn't find much, but from what I found, like in previous minutes, it seemed kind of like that. Like
Yeah.
there were, every now and then, somebody came forward asking for a bench, you know, as a memorial, and that it seemed to be approved.
well, the comments that they made, you know, made sense, you know, they said, you know, you really need to put the memorials behind the bench and maybe make them all uniform in the sense that this is a town, this is, you know, maybe wood.
Well, actually, in Bethany, I think they actually have a, like, granite memorial, like a wall
Okay,
with names
okay.
going from World War I
Oh,
to
okay.
current veterans.
And where is that? It's in a park?
Veterans
Memorial Park.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
Veterans
I'm just
Memorial
not
Park,
familiar with
yeah.
Bethany,
Well,
but-
we do have also,
Yeah.
right in front of the center building here, you know, we have, for the veterans, we have.
But this is a little bit different. This
Yeah,
is not
that's
necessarily
huge.
for veterans.
Yeah.
This is for people for their own personal loss.
Okay.
Put it to veteran, right? I mean, it seems like the benches that are out on Fitzgerald are not
Well,
necessarily veterans.
there are some benches that, like, for Sufrene.
Right.
He passed away, and he was coming back home, and so the parents, and I think the town, I'm not sure who put it up, but, you know, that is like, you know, in his honor. So, and I don't know about the others. I know there are others, but I'm familiar with
Yeah.
the Sufrene bench. So,
Well, it sounds like no one really wants to see more benches on the Fitzgerald
Exactly.
property, but wood is nice, but who's going to maintain it then? You know,
Right.
like Westport has an application, and they will maintain them or replace them for 8 years.
okay.
You know, so they provide for that, but then who's going to take over that as Public Works, as Parks and Recreation?
Well, that's what we don't want to do.
So that's the
I
hard
think-
part with wood.
I think what needs to happen is that whatever the bench is, that the person that puts it up needs to be responsible for it. You know, maybe making donations for its upkeep, you know, figuring out how to do that. Because otherwise it's going to become an expense to the town.
I think
And
it's that. I think it needs to be standard. You know, it needs to be like a uniform type of bench that's used throughout. It seems like that's was a recurring comment that
Right.
came up.
Right.
There are no benches. If there are, make sure that they all look the same.
Yeah.
And they're very they blend in well with the environment.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and, so we're going to look at the benches, we're going to discuss the draft guidelines, we're going to discuss the application, finalize the application. And I think keeping it short and sweet at this point, so that's just going to be a working meeting, that we just wordsmith it, and, so that we can then perhaps send it out.
Perfect.
Okay? All right. So, motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.